What's going on, guys? It's Hi, and today we're starting off a little bit later than normal. It's about 3:30 p.m. and I've just started on the hike. If you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I'm not much of an afternoon or evening hiker because the trails usually get pretty crowded, and to prove a point, today was actually pretty much the crowdest I've ever seen Mount Rainier. But today I wanted to capture Mount Rainier during sunset, so there isn't really any way around that. I have to go to the national park a lot later in the day. To kill some time before the actual sunset, I'm doing a hike from Reflections Lake to Narada Falls via the Lower Falls Trail and the Narada Falls Trail, and then looping back around back to Reflections Lake via the Wonderland Trail. According to my maps, this is about a 6-7 mile hike, so hopefully it's not too hard and hopefully we make it back in time for sunset. I'm almost a mile into the hike and it's been almost completely uphill since the start. But I think if you are in good cardio shape, it should be pretty manageable. And a mile into the hike, just look at this view. Mount Rainier just looks absolutely stunning. As you can see, it's quite cloudy right now, but it's patchy clouds. So if it were to clear up a little bit more at sunset, I think we might have something really nice. So because of the various trail signs that I've seen so far, the hike has been a little bit confusing because at the beginning, closer to Reflections Lake, there was a sign that said Narada Falls 0.9 miles or something like that, which according to my map doesn't make any sense because the entire hike is like 3 miles. So seeing that second trail sign back there made everything make more sense because it said 0.2 miles to the Narada Falls Trail, which that makes sense because I'm not even on the official trail yet. Wow. So it might be a little bit difficult to hear me right now with this little rusty creek next to me, but I'm about 1.5 miles, a little bit less than that, into the hike. But to be honest, that mile back there from Reflections Lake to the Narada Falls Trail, that was a little bit boring. It was just a bunch of walking through the woods, uphill, downhill, and not much to look at. But now, heading on this second half of the hike of the second half of my first half of my total hike, everything's opened up. You're starting to see streams and water and a little bit interesting things like this, just a bunch of rocks that look like it's rusty, but I don't know how it'll get rusty, but whatever. If you know what's going on here, just leave it down in the comments below. But this is looking really interesting, but I'm not gonna stop just yet. I'm not gonna stop to take a picture, and we're going to keep going to Ruby Falls. So just hit another trail sign and hopefully this one is correct. And if it is, we are officially on the Narada Falls Trail, and Narada Falls is only 0.8 miles away. So getting pretty close. Just passed by a few other hikers and got news that people are seeing black bears on the trail, but it was opposite of where we are towards Paradise. So hopefully there isn't anything down here. If it is, kind of bad news. The only advice that I have for you if you're pretty much anywhere, just make a lot of noise in the woods. Make sure that you are heard, because sneaking up on a bear, that's when it's gonna get testy and try to attack you. So at this point in the trail, I should be at Ruby Falls, which I'm unsure if I'm actually at, because there is a waterfall right next to me over here, but I'm not sure if this is Ruby Falls or right after the bridge there is another mini waterfall, or if that's Ruby Fall. But this is actually looking quite nice. So whether or not that is actually Ruby Falls for sure, I don't know, but it probably is. And I decided not to stop and take a picture of it because when I got there, it was quite windy and the falls are pretty close, so the wind was just picking up the mist and just blowing it at me, so it was just getting too messy to actually take a picture of it. Hopefully you guys were able to make it out from that super far away video, but there was a mama and baby deer on the trail, and they were literally like, the lens I'm using is a 16-35, so it makes everything look like it's farther away, but the deer was pretty close. I mean, like, we're talking like 50 feet maybe away, so that was pretty cool. So it seems like me and the deer were just walking on the same trail, heading to the same place. And with the help of all these waterfalls and streams, it really dampened my footsteps, so I was able to get really close to it. I took one corner and the deer was like 10 feet away from me, so that was pretty cool. But right now I've made it to a spot with a bunch of little small waterfalls, and it looks pretty nice, so I think I'm gonna stop here and take a picture real quick. So as you can see, I just stopped and took a quick picture. It wasn't really anything that I'm overly happy with, and that mainly has to do with the composition, because where I was standing, there were a lot of trees around the edge of that little cliff face that I was standing on. So no matter where I placed my tripod and made my composition, there were trees hanging at the bottom of my composition. I didn't really like that. The picture is overall pretty nice to look at, but nothing really mind-blowing. So I'm actually getting a bit worried with the time. It's about 5:40, I believe, p.m. And we're about 2 miles in and about a mile left of this hike. But remember, we still have to hike all the way back to Reflections Lake, which is about another 3-4 miles. So I got to be able to get back there by sunset, which is like 8:30. So if I were to just hike, of course I'll be able to make it there, but with all this filming and photography, it makes everything a little bit difficult. So surprisingly, according to my mapping app, I'm only about 2.1 miles into the hike, and that's included with all the walking back and forth for all this B-roll. And I'm already at Narada Falls, and quite surprising. It's not that bad of a hike. So one thing that was quite surprising on the hike over to Narada Falls was that there was really nobody on the trail. I think I saw two people, about two people. Some other people were just sitting on the side of the road and whatnot, but on the trail, there was really only two people. And it kind of makes sense because nobody really hikes to Narada Falls. Everybody just drives there. There's literally a parking lot right there. So that's what I've done in the past. And like I said, nobody really hikes to Narada Falls. So I don't even know if you guys can see me right now because there's so much mist being picked up and just spraying everywhere, and I can see my lens is just completely covered in water. But finally made it to Narada Falls, and I actually haven't been here in years. And fun fact, Narada Falls was pretty much like one of the first locations that I ever photographed. This is where Narada Falls and Mount Rainier is the first place that I went to when I first started doing photography. Back then I was super adventurous and tried to get like all the crazy photos. So I actually hiked all the way down to the basin of the Narada Falls and actually took pictures down there, which I'm not sure how I did. I'm actually making my way down a smaller trail right now, which I think leads you to pretty much like where you can go off trail and go under the falls. But the main goal for right now is finding the Wonderland trail so I can actually make it back to Reflections Lake in time for sunset. Okay, so as you can see, according to this sign, the Wonderland trail is both ways on this fork. But I just checked with my map on my phone, and if you're doing it like me, going from Narada Falls back to Reflections Lake, you want to go left at this sign, just a little bit further down the trail from the actual Narada Falls. I just have to stop and take a break real quick because on this second section of the hike back to Reflections Lake, this was kind of expected because Narada Falls is lower in elevation than Reflections Lake, so the hike back is just nothing but uphill. Like literally the entire time so far have been nothing but uphills, and definitely breaking a sweat. So I've just gone through a good chunk of this trail, and I'm taking a little bit of a break right now because, like I said, it's been nothing but uphill. If you look on a map and see this trail, you'll notice that there are a few switchbacks in pretty much the center of the trail. And from the start to the end of those switchbacks, it's nothing but uphill. And now that I'm out of those switchbacks, it's nice, somewhat downhill, flat ground, so it's been a lot more enjoyable than that first section of the hike. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that's a car driving by, and I'm just literally a few feet down from the road behind the camera right now, and that should mean that I'm walking beside the road to get to Reflections Lake. So I should be fairly close and just a little bit more of a walk. So check it out, I've just made it back to, this was the very first sign that I saw today saying the Narada Falls trail, 0.9 miles away, and I just came back from this trail over here, and now I'm pretty much back at Reflections Lake. And we made it back, look, first view of the lake. Sun's gonna set pretty soon, absolutely amazing. So as you can see, I've made it back to the car, and with plenty of time to spare. I think it's just like 7:13 the last time I checked. And according to my GPS when I was mapping my route, the whole hike was only about 4 miles, but that's 4 miles considering that I walked back and forth to do all the B-roll. So realistically, it's probably like 3.5 miles, maybe 3 miles. Parked right next to the road. But yeah, maybe it's 3 miles long, so it's not as bad at all like what the internet was making me believing it's 3 miles each way. So it's way less strenuous than what I was thinking. But like I said, it's not even 7:30 yet, and sunset is I think it's starting at 8:30, but around 9 o'clock, so I have some time to spare. That's a good thing. So I'll walk around, try to find my composition, and just set up for the actual shot. The sky is really clearing up right now. Behind the mountains there isn't too much clouds. There's good clouds, like aesthetically good clouds, but the lake itself, there's some minor wind, so there's a lot of ripples in the water, so Reflections Lake isn't really living up to its name right now. It's just a lake under Mount Rainier for the most part. But all right, I'm gonna go change, relax for a little bit because my legs are cramping up a little bit, and let's go take this photo. Right now I'm at what I'm feeling is the final location for the day, and I think I have my composition, but nothing is really in my favor right now. Behind the mountain, there aren't any real clouds, so the chances of a crazy sunset is not really going to happen. The lake itself is being affected by a lot of little ripples, a slight breeze, and that in turn makes it so that there's no reflection. And well, there is a reflection in this little puddle in front of me, but that's way too small and way too low for me to actually capture. So the best thing to do for right now is just to wait it out and pray for something crazy to happen. So as you guys can see, I've made it back to the studio, and there was no final photo that was featured from Reflection Lake at sunset. And that was just like I said earlier. Conditions were really not in my favor. By the time sunset was really happening, the sky was clear, no clouds. There was a little bit of wind that caused a lot of ripples in the lake, which made no reflections, and it just didn't happen. Well, I kind of have to clarify that because a pretty decent sunset did occur. It just happened to have occurred in the opposite direction of where I was trying to photograph. So at the end of the day, it's just a case of bad luck. I mean, what else am I gonna do? Because we can prepare all we want for taking good photographs, but sometimes nature just comes in between everything. So before I end this video, I just want to give a little review in case you're interested in doing a hike that's similar to the one that I showed in this video, going from Reflections Lake to Narada Falls via the Lower Falls Trail and the Narada Falls Trail, then back around via the Wonderland Trail. I'm going to be honest, this is not a hike that I would really recommend to anyone. Well, maybe if you are purely just out and you want to get some exercise, you just want to burn some calories, that is really the only reason that I see for doing the hike that I did. I feel this way because to me, this hike is all about the destination and not about the actual adventure that it took you to get to the destination, because in between the two destinations you have Reflection Lake and you have Narada Falls, and in between those 2 points, the hike that I took, there wasn't really anything to look at. It was pretty disappointing for the amount of effort that I had to put in. Going from Reflection Lake to Narada Falls, that was the better hike of the two, but to be realistic, it wasn't that great of a hike at all. If you remember at the beginning, I showed you about 1 mile in, there was that viewpoint of Mount Rainier. To me, that was about as good as it got. The best part of going to Narada Falls really started at that 0.2 mile trailhead that was really right next to all those little streams and mini waterfalls. That was really the best part of this hike. But I kind of want to just recommend for you to just park and start at that trailhead, that little trail sign, because at that space, there's actually enough space for you to park your car and just start right there. And again, to me, it's a lot more worth it to just start right there, because before that, that mile plus behind, there really wasn't anything but walking in dense forest with trees and shrubs pretty much side to side from you. So it's not much to actually look at. Then going from Narada Falls back to Reflection Lake, to me that was a pretty disappointing hike. First of all, it's pretty much straight uphill from the start to the end of the switchbacks, which is a good halfway, three-quarter way of the entire trail. So doing a lot of uphill isn't really the bad part of the trail. I mean, some hikes you just go straight uphill. That's kind of just life. But during this uphill, you're in really dense and sometimes what seems like unmanaged forest. So there are trees and shrubs directly. Most of the trail is pretty much one person wide. So trees and bushes just rubbing against you the entire time. So again, there isn't anything to really look at. Once you finish up with the switchbacks, the trail gets a lot easier. The ground starts to level out and you start going downhill a bit. So again, it's a bit easier and the trail even opens up a bit with some prairies and things that are pretty decent to look at. But on the flip side, once you get to this nice open area with these nice prairie and pastures to look at, you're essentially walking right next to and below a road. So the entire time you're walking through, trying to enjoy the scenery, you're just hearing cars driving by. So it kind of just ruins everything. Again, to me, this trip is really all about the destinations, either Reflection Lake or Narada Falls. And if you are purely just here to see these two places, just drive there. There are parking lots directly right off the road that you can stop in, check these places out, and not have to deal with the mediocre hikes in between. Again, I'm just trying to save you some time and effort, but if you're one of those people who purely just want to go out and burn some calories, go ahead, do it. It's 3 miles, it's fairly easy, and I mean, you get to see Reflection Lake and Narada Falls. And with that, we'll end it here. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it around, comment down below with any thoughts or questions you may have. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more content. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.